This case is from the FBI's most wanted list. The case we're looking at today has been a chase that's gone across multiple countries and even continents. This woman, who we'll be talking about today, is wanted for her involvement in one of the largest financial fraud schemes in history. Now, stick around to find out just how she did it and how she managed to evade authorities for so long. This is the story of Cindy Rodriguez Singh. Cindy was born in the United States and lived there until she was 24 years old. She then moved to Malaysia, where she met her future husband. He was 13 years older than her and worked as an executive at a company called Newscape, which was a web design firm. The company was actually owned by his family. Cindy wasn't working when she first arrived in Malaysia, but she would soon get a job at the company as well. It didn't take long for her to rise through the ranks because not only did she speak several languages, including Mandarin, she was also very charming. By 2006, she had become the head of human resources for the company, and her salary was enough to support her and her husband comfortably. But this wasn't enough for her. She soon started planning her greatest heist yet. Cindy started opening up bank accounts under fake names, and she was doing this in multiple countries, including Malaysia, Hong Kong, and the United States. She would use these accounts to transfer money through, and it made it almost impossible to trace back to her. It wasn't long before she started planning to steal millions of dollars from her employer. She used all her knowledge she gained over the years at the company to plan her attack. But she knew that she couldn't do this alone. She needed a team, so she recruited 2 people to help her with the plan. One of them was her husband. As I mentioned earlier, he owned a stake in the company, so he had access to the company's finances and bank accounts. He would later say that he had no idea what Cindy was planning and that he didn't know anything about the fraud. But it's highly unlikely that he had no idea what was going on. The second person Cindy recruited was her boss's brother-in-law. He was called Anthony, and he worked in the finance department. He was the one who helped Cindy open some of the bank accounts, and he was also responsible for moving money between different accounts. The 3 of them worked together to pull off their scheme. They were funneling money out of the company and into bank accounts controlled by Cindy, and they did this over the course of several months. They moved money from China to Malaysia to Hong Kong and finally to the United States. By the time they were done, they had stolen a total of $47 million from the company. At first, nobody noticed that money was missing, but when the company's accountant noticed some discrepancies in the bank statements, he reported it to the police. When the police investigated, they found out that Cindy was the mastermind behind the whole thing. She had used her position at the company to get access to the bank accounts, and she had recruited 2 other people to help her carry out her plan. An arrest warrant was issued for Cindy and the 2 men, but Cindy was nowhere to be found. In fact, she hadn't been seen since the day before the company had discovered the fraud. Her house had been empty and her phone had been disconnected. The police believed that she had fled the country, but they didn't know where she had gone. They searched everywhere, but they couldn't find her. She had literally vanished into thin air. For the next 5 years, Cindy lived in hiding. She changed her name, and she even changed the way she looked. She got plastic surgery to alter her appearance, and she traveled all over Asia and Europe. She tried to stay off the grid as much as possible. She used burner phones, and she avoided using her real name. But the police were on her trail the whole time. They had a team of agents dedicated to finding her and bringing her to justice. In 2011, the FBI added her to their most wanted list, and they offered a reward of up to $100,000 for information leading to her arrest. The FBI believes that Cindy was living in Malaysia the entire time, even though she had changed her appearance. She was able to fool the police for so long because she had so much money. She lived a lavish lifestyle, and she was always surrounded by bodyguards. She never went anywhere without them, and she was always careful to keep a low profile. She didn't want anybody to recognize her. In 2012, the Malaysian police arrested one of her accomplices, the man named Anthony. He gave up Cindy to the police in exchange for a lighter sentence. But she was still on the run. The police had leads on her whereabouts, but every time they closed in on her, she would slip through their fingers. She was always one step ahead of them. Then, in 2018, after 8 years on the run, Cindy was finally arrested. She was in Cambodia at the time, and she was living under the name of Cindy Shrestha. She had gotten married again, and she had even started her own business. But the FBI caught up with her and they brought her back to the United States to face charges. She was so confident that she had gotten away with it that she actually flew back to Malaysia to testify in her accomplice's trial. She thought she was being clever, but it was actually a big mistake. That is how the police caught up with her, and that is how she was finally brought to justice. When she was arrested, she was shocked. She couldn't believe that the FBI had finally caught up with her. She thought she had gotten away with it. She thought she was smarter than the police. But she was wrong. After Cindy was extradited to Malaysia, she pleaded guilty to the charges against her. She was sentenced to 12 years in prison, but she was given credit for the time she had already spent in custody. So she was only sentenced to 9 more years. She's eligible for parole in 2027. As for her accomplices, the 2 men, they were also sentenced to prison. The husband was sentenced to 7 years, and the other man was sentenced to 4 years. So how did Cindy manage to evade the police for so long? Well, as I mentioned earlier, she was very clever, she was smart, and she was charming. She was able to fool everyone around her, including the police. She was also very wealthy, which helped her to stay on the run. She could afford to live a lavish lifestyle and she could afford to hire bodyguards to protect her. And she was always careful to keep a low profile. She never wanted anyone to recognize her. All of these things helped her to stay on the run for so long. But eventually, the FBI caught up with her and she was brought to justice. I think this case shows that no matter how clever you are, the police will always catch up with you if you have committed a crime. Now, Cindy's story is a cautionary tale. She could have gotten away with her crime if she hadn't been so greedy. She stole millions of dollars from her employer, and that's never a good idea. When you steal from people, karma will always catch up with you. And in Cindy's case, it did. She is now behind bars, and she will never be a free woman again. What do you think could have possibly motivated Cindy to commit such a crime? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I personally think that greed was probably the main motivation behind her actions. She saw an opportunity to steal millions of dollars, and she took it. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more content like this. I'll see you next time.